Today I want to explore something different, the unknown and the unexplained. Have you ever wondered about the mysterious cases that were left unsolved for years? Well, in this video, we'll uncover the top 5 cases that remained a mystery for a decade or more until a breakthrough finally cracked the code. Get ready to be intrigued and amazed as we reveal the shocking truth behind these once baffling mysteries. We bring you a list of top 5 mysterious cases that went on to decades. These cases will leave you in awe and amazement at the perseverance of investigators and the power of modern technology. So without further ado, let's dive in. Number 1 in the list, Boy in the Box. A college student discovered a boy's body inside a cardboard box on a chilly February day in 1957 in a wooded region in northeast Philadelphia. The student waited a day before calling the police, who got to work right away trying to identify the youngster, determine who killed him, and discover how his body wound up in the box. The body appeared to have been cleaned and freshly groomed, with a recent haircut and trimmed fingernails. However, it looked like he had suffered extensive physical abuse before his death, with multiple injuries. He was also severely malnourished. The body was covered with scars, some of which were surgical, most notably on his ankle, groin, and chin. Who knew that it was a riddle that would remain unsolved for years? An autopsy later indicated that the youngster, who was at the time estimated to be between 4 and 6 years old, had been battered to death. However, there were a few hints and numerous attempts over many years to solve the crime. However, it was fruitless. The unidentified victim was dubbed the Boy in the Box. Well, others more affectionately referred to him as America's Unknown Child. On December 8, 2022, after more than 65 years after his body was found, the boy was publicly identified as Joseph Augustus Zarelli. During a press conference held by Philadelphia Police Department. Number 2, Golden State Killer. The Golden State Killer, also known as the East Area Rapist, Original Night Stalker, Visalia Ransacker, is a serial killer, rapist, and a burglar who committed a series of crimes in California between 1974 and 1986. The Golden State Killer's crimes were notably for their brutality and the fact that he evaded capture for decades until his arrest in 2018. The Golden State Killer's crimes began in Sacramento area in 1974, where he started as a burglar and a rapist. He would break into homes while the occupants were sleeping and tie them up before committing sexual assault. Over time, his crimes escalated to include murder, and he became known for his distinctive modus operandi, which involved stalking his victims for weeks or even months before attacking them. The Golden State Killer was also known for his elaborate and sometimes taunting phone calls to his victims and the media. He was careful to leave a few clues behind and changed his tactics frequently to avoid detection. Despite intensive efforts by the law enforcement to catch him, the Golden State Killer remained at large for over 40 years. In 2018, however, he was finally identified and arrested using DNA evidence. Joseph James DeAngelo, a former police officer, was charged with multiple counts of murder and other crimes related to the Golden State Killer case. The arrest of the Golden State Killer was a significant moment in the history of criminal justice, as it demonstrated the power of modern DNA technology to solve cold cases. It also brought closer to the many victims and their families who had lived in fear for decades. Overall, the Golden State Killer's crimes were among the most notorious and chilling in American history. The sheer scale and depravity of his offenses, coupled with the fact that he remained at large for so long, has made him a subject of fascination and horror for many people. Number 3. Lady of the Dunes. On July 26, 1974, a body was discovered in the dunes of Provincetown, Massachusetts, about a mile east of the Race Point Ranger Station inside the Cape Cod National Seashore. The cause of the death was determined to be a blow to the head, and the hands were missing, presumably removed by the killer to prevent identification through fingerprints. The head was nearly severed from the body, and the estimated time of the death was several weeks prior. Investigators have been working for almost 5 decades to identify the victim through various methods, including neighborhood canvasses, reviews of missing person cases, clay model facial reconstruction, and age regression drawings. With the development of investigative genealogy, a method that combines DNA analysis with traditional genealogy research and historical records to generate investigative leads for unsolved violent crimes. On October 31, 2022, the FBI field office in Boston announced that the victim has been identified, the Lady of Dunes, as Ruth Murray Terry, the oldest unidentified homicide victim in Massachusetts after nearly 50 years. Using investigative genealogy, the FBI has identified Ruth Murray Terry of Tennessee as the victim. This breakthrough in the infamous cold case marks a significant milestone in the investigation and is a testament to the dedication and tireless efforts of the law enforcement agencies who have been working on this case for decades. Number 4. Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer is an unidentified serial killer who operated in Northern California during the late 1960s and the early 1970s. The killer is believed to have killed at least 5 people, though he claimed to have killed as many as 37. He was known for sending taunting letters and cryptograms to the police and newspaper, which helped to create a media sensation around the case. The first confirmed Zodiac killing took place on December 20, 1968, when 2 teenagers, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, were shot and killed when parked in a car on a remote road in Vallejo, California. The killer struck again on July 4, 1969, when he shot and killed Darlene Forain and severely wounded her companion, Michael Majau, in a parking lot in Vallejo. Over the next few months, the Zodiac Killer sent a series of letters and cryptograms to the police and newspapers in which he claimed responsibility for the murders and threatened to kill again. On September 27, 1969, the killer struck again, killing taxi driver Paul Stein in San Francisco's Presidio Heights neighborhood. Despite an intensive investigation, the Zodiac Killer was never identified or captured. The case remains one of the most notorious unsolved mysteries in American criminal history. The killer's letters and cryptograms have been subject of extensive analysis by both law enforcement and amateur sleuths. But to this day, the killer's true identity remains a mystery. Over the years, a number of suspects have been proposed and some have been named publicly. However, none of the suspects have ever been definitely linked to the crimes. This case remains open and law enforcement officials continue to receive tips and leads, but the identity of the Zodiac Killer may never be known for certain. Number 5. Atlanta Child Murders. The Atlanta child murders were a series of murders that occurred in Atlanta, Georgia between 1979 and 1981. At least 28 children, adolescents, and young adults were murdered during this period, most of whom were African American. The case was one of the most extensive and complex investigations in the history of American law enforcement and involved a massive search for the killer. The first known victim of the Atlanta child murder was Edward Smith, a 14-year-old boy who disappeared on July 21, 1979. Over the next 2 years, the killer claimed more victims, most of whom were abducted and strangled. The murders caused a great deal of fear and panic in the Atlanta community, particularly among African American families, who felt that the police were not doing enough to solve the case. The investigation into the Atlanta child murders were led by the Atlanta Police Department and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. The police department established a special task force which conducted an extensive search for evidence and interviewed thousands of witnesses. The FBI also became involved in the case, providing assistance with forensic analysis and developing a criminal profile of the killer. In June 1981, a 23-year-old man named Wayne Williams was arrested and charged with the murders of the two victims, both of whom had been found in Chattahoochee River. Although Williams was not charged with all the murders, he was convicted of the two murders in 1982 and sentenced to life in prison. The police and prosecutors maintained that Williams was responsible for all the murders, but he has always maintained his innocence. The Atlanta child murders case remains controversial to this day, with some people believing that Williams was unfairly targeted and convicted due to racial bias. Others argue that there is still too much uncertainty surrounding the case and that the true identity of the killer may never be known. Despite the controversy, the case remains one of the most significant and tragic chapters in the American criminal history. Well, that concludes our list of top 5 mysterious cases. It's incredible to see how advancements in technology and persistence can help solve even the most baffling of cases. Let us know in the comments which case surprised you the most. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to get notified for our next video. Thank you for watching.